Hey, everyone. Welcome to Signals. And thanks to the panelists that I'm joined here by. For the next 30 minutes, we're going to talk about agent marketplaces. Super hot topic right now. I think there have been at least 5 or 6 big announcements in the last 2 weeks about projects trying to tackle the space. So maybe before we dive in, let's set some context and just do like a quick intro and maybe like a sentence or two about what you're working on, so I kind of know where you're coming from.
Hi, my name is James Young. I run a project called CollabLand. We do what's called token gating on Discord and Telegram. So I guess before it used to be called a bot, I guess now it's called a game. Also working on this side project called Mother AI, trying to create an ecosystem or a swarm of agents.
Hey, I'm Evgeny, co-founder of Fluence. We are building decentralized compute platform, which we also call cloudless platform. And actually, if you have looked at the sky today, we have this stupid marketing aerial advertising and saying go cloudless, and you see no clouds in the sky. Yeah. So we are sponsoring the weather in Denver this week. You're welcome. And so we are definitely interested in AI from the infrastructure perspective, AI agents and stuff. So happy to discuss this.
Hey, Shenet from ETHDenver. We are building a protocol for discovery. If you think search engines are discovery tools, dating apps, LinkedIn, or recommendation engines, we say very soon agents will be taking care of discovery. And we are building a protocol for these agents to compete or to find your best things, love of your life, best job of your lives. Yeah, and discovery is a very basic primitive of marketplaces. So yeah, pretty curious about this discussion.
Hello, everybody. My name is David Snyder. I am one of the co-creators of a project called Lit Protocol. It is a decentralized key management network. So if you think about what Ethereum does for state, Lit Protocol does for signing and encryption. As of today, the network manages about $110 million in assets and has encrypted about 80 million data points. And then in the past few months, we have been working with a lot of ecosystem teams on building agent wallet tooling, specifically around how agent runtimes can make transactions on behalf of users without giving away the keys to the kingdom, so to speak. Super glad to be here.
Cool. All right. We're short on time, so let's just jump right in. Let's define some context around what we mean when we say agent marketplaces. I think a lot of people here know what marketplaces is. I'm sure I could assume what it is. But what actually is an agent marketplace? What's being bought and sold? And why does the world need them? Opening a question.
Yeah, I'm happy to take a stab at that. I think we know what they look like in Web 2 today, which is an SMB signs up to a service and they go, I can use this agent to automate my cold email, and I can use this agent to do customer service, etc. And so it ends up being a lot like an app store in terms of there's a selection of services that somebody can opt into. Thinking about crypto agents and specifically agents that transact on behalf of individuals and organizations, I think there's still some open questions. One way that people frame it is that are you going to interact with a single agent, or are you going to interact with a swarm? As it relates to agent marketplaces, the mental model that we have been designing from is that in the same way that we all use the iPhone as the core home assistant today to then access our services, which are the apps, that what will emerge and where we're building tooling around is that you'll have a core home assistant agent and you share your intent, hey, rebalance my crypto portfolio, buy flowers for my mom, whatever it might be, and it will be able to figure out what services are required and then manage the consent such that those services can use your money to fulfill that intent.
I would add something, but that was great. We should go back to primitives. What are the basic functions of marketplaces? So you find other sellers or buyers, then you negotiate over price. Then they provide some fulfillment services or transactions, maybe dispute services. So there are different functions that marketplace provides. And we like to think these are separate agents because you need to separate these concerns. So these agents are different verticals, or like these functions are different agent verticals. We'd like to think that. And when they work together, you have a same functionality of a marketplace, and you have markets, not a place, right? Like everywhere is market. So, or maybe like there won't be marketplace, but markets are conversations, and a phrase are useful. But markets will be deconstructed as multiple agents. That's how we think about it.
Yeah, I think when we speak about marketplaces, we mean like, all kind of collaboration between agents, and also send supply to agents to maintain their functions. So it basically means, data, which are they need to do what they want to do. Prompts in order to set up some new agents. Like, I think like also it's important to think that agents as a kind of sovereign entities can also, set up new agents to finish, to complete their task. And, they can discover sort of each other, or like templates of agents through the marketplace, get them installed and run them, complete the task, and so on. And they also can trade with each other, right? So as was mentioned, they can use natural language or any kind of other protocol to talk to each other, to also get what they want through the conversation.
It's interesting. I want to try and keep an open mind, because the context in which we have a marketplace or know of a marketplace, we have to start with things that we already know, find out that shared context. But AI is this interesting thing where you create levels of abstraction, because I can imagine a marketplace, as David was saying, like you may have this orchestrator agent that will orchestrate on your behalf. But it could be that like the agent that's orchestrating is calling another agent. That might be a different orchestrator agent. So you can almost imagine n number of middle agents. And so you have, it boils down to these like really discrete tasks. So I don't know what that looks like, because like if I'm an Uber driver, I may drive, but then like, hey, well, I'm just gonna sit in the passenger seat, someone else drive. Like you can like defer things. I think we have this like two-dimensional buyer-seller market, but I don't know if you can call it a market. It's like, I don't know. So it's weird, because that's what AI does. It like allows you to go up the abstraction. And once you figure that out, then what's the higher abstraction after that?
I completely agree. So it seems like it's enabling agent-to-agent commerce, specialized agents, sort of like infinitely decomposable and specialized, and they're working together to perform some tasks. And maybe you use an orchestrator agent, which delegates to another orchestrator agent, which calls a bunch of other agents, certain subsets of it, ultimately returns. I mean, that's a wild feature. And what do you think will be the first like tangible implementations in the world we know today, where like developers will actually be building up types of agent marketplaces? What's going to come first?
I mean, in the what comes first, the agent or the agent marketplace question, it's certainly the agent, right? Like we like a standalone service. The marketplace is just a collection of the services. So we're starting to see these fundamental services arise, whether it's agents that do things like yield optimization or permanent loss prevention in crypto, or even extending beyond that as like the integrations are underway around being able to connect to crypto, being able to do e-commerce, connecting to Twitter, connecting to Discord. I think probably the right place is like to start is, okay, what are the categories of the services? And then what are the best applications in each of those categories? And then the marketplace is just the layer for accessing those services. To me, it's in terms of like, what is an agent marketplace? It's just a place to access services in the same way that that's a marketplace today. The blockchain, of course, becomes like a super interesting place to have the registry of all of those services and their capabilities. And so now we're talking about an open marketplace versus like a closed marketplace of what you would see with the custom GPTs on the left sidebar inside of OpenAI, for example.
I saw actually already one of the examples when people did sort of concept of Upwork for agents. So essentially, like you can just as agent, you can go there and hire another agent for generating video or a picture, whatever, like a specialized agent can do. The only problem is actually like the payment, because it's been done by two people, like non-crypto, right? So how we handle fiat payments, then UI, the actually like being able for agent to understand UI when click the buttons, that's kind of already solved, but not super stable yet. But then the payments is actually unclear. So I think that's still a concept, but that's I'm thinking of these marketplaces of agents as an Upwork, but probably with APIs and stablecoin payments, that you can immediately use.
Yeah, that brings me to another topic that I wanted to cover is like, we talk about on-chain agent marketplaces, blockchain enablement. I'm playing devil's advocate, like why couldn't an agent just sort of call and interpret another agent's API, get a response, use the Stripe API to facilitate payments? Like what part of this stack actually needs decentralization, blockchain? Like, how does this come to life?
Yeah, I mean, I've been in this space full time since 2017 and have gone from the arc of idealistic builder to like, what is the fundamental benefit? And it's interoperability to the front, not decentralization, not user control, not censorship resistance. The benefit of using the open systems is interoperability. And was talking about this with Juan and Ilya during their talk just a moment ago. Like there is the opportunity for us as collective builders of decentralized systems, decentralized memory, agent marketplaces, to focus on the types of products that are only enabled through open and interoperable systems, which like happen to run on decentralized rails, but the benefit is around the interoperability. And it is through that path, at least in my view, is like, that's how we get to seriously society-defining protocols like global collective intelligence, global cybersecurity threat detection, the types of intelligences that are updatable by everybody, but owned by no one. And it's hard to see that being controlled or owned fully by Stripe or OpenAI or Apple. And so at least that's generally the way that I've been thinking about it, and hope that like as an industry, we can move towards to stop talking about the ideals so much, carry them in our hearts, certainly. But at least outside of the folks in this room, let's talk more about what are the types of things that for somebody who trusts a corporation, and most people trust most corporations most of the time, what are the fundamental different types of benefits and products that can only be built on these type of decentralized and open systems? And to me, the core benefit is certainly around the interoperability of data and services.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, around a couple of things. I like thinking about Ilya from Near tweeted a couple of weeks ago, said someone's service agent is your personal agent. So if you think like it's a perspective issue, so like they're just communicating each other. And the second one, we also see this tweet a couple of days ago, two agents discover these are AI and they just upgrade their communication into like kind of computer language. So for that kind of interoperability, they need trusted guardrails. So that's crypto. That's because they need to ensure this is trusted, this is interoperable. So they just upgrade themselves into this superhighway and they communicate. So this is only possible with crypto, because like you need a neutral space for communication. So that just validates what we do here.
Okay, so another piece, Calvin.
Yeah, I wanted to say like there's something about fault tolerance there. Like we'll be able to host at least like a piece of agent on chain. We can benefit from sort of it being available in eternity versus because like all these communication protocols for agents that are being suggested right now, like by Anthropic, this MCP, Model Context Protocol, is essentially like a REST API, right? So if your server goes down, your agent's gone. There's a kind of fundamental difference between single server or like recreating the server and having the chain consensus based, which is kind of always like the only problem is non-determinism of LLMs. but actually I'm not sure, maybe like ADI actually knows something about it, but I think he left.
Another piece on this, like determinism or another potential benefit of blockchain is like in this sort of nested, decentralized swarm of agents all doing particular subsets of a task to deliver an end result. Ultimately, like how do you ensure that agents are doing what they're saying they're going to do? And how do you ensure that you're like selecting and choosing the best agent? Basically, how do you add trust throughout that entire commercial exchange in order to deliver an outcome? Because it seems like the more delegation you have, or trust assumptions you're building in. And so how do we think about sort of like making these systems more secure, more provable, so that ultimately the outcomes can be trusted?
And now I think, practically speaking, like right now, there has to be some form of curation as we understand and learn these systems. When first .com boom happened, there was no idea that, you're all going to change societally to say that hitchhiking is now acceptable. So a lot of us got here on an Uber. So I think it's like it's a dance between what is culturally acceptable. I do think that technology leads culture. So I think it's going to happen, but it's not just a flip of a switch. What's interesting is how it's going to weave. It's not a straight line. But I think there's initially going to be a lot of hesitation and a lot of curation that's going to happen. But then it's one of these things where I think it's going to be slowly and then all.
Yeah, I think we have.
Oh, I was just going to say, I just don't know what that is.
Yeah, I think there's a spectrum of trust, as there is with every kind of system. In the context of agents, on one side you have the fully trusted system of OpenAI. On the other side, you have the fully verifiable agent locked down in a TEE with all the kind of attestation, or maybe it's using ZKML or FAT for doing the inference. For me, what's really interesting is the middle ground, which is kind of like the practical stepping stones to moving towards verifiability, which is around guardrails. And functionally today, we're seeing three ways that guardrails are implemented. One is with smart contract accounts, which are limited in the context of being able to only operate over a single island blockchain. There's also embedded wallet providers that do centralized enforcement of policies. Those are totally trusted, so closer to the OpenAI side. And then there's the work that we've been doing around programmable signing, where users consent to on-chain abilities like this agent runtime can use Uniswap on base with a spending limit of $1,000 a day, but not having those policies be confined to a single blockchain. Also being able to use the Charles Schwab API to buy and sell Tesla stock, do e-commerce, use Bitcoin, Solana, EVM, and ideally have those systems connected up to a user-owned agent memory, such that like the same dynamic of guardrails and verifiability applies both to transacting as well as to the context of the agent. And in some cases, we need to recall the context of that agent to make sure it's personalized. And so, yeah, kind of thinking about it on that kind of gradient.
Yeah. So taking this a bit to the extremes of free and open markets, kind of a bit of the stuff that Ilya and Juan touched on earlier today, like,
Yeah, people
think, we all believe in trustlessness to some extent, permissionlessness, the innovation that enables, but also I'm sure we've all seen some of the negatives and the downsides and the dangers of ungoverned systems. And so where do you think agent marketplaces should fall on the gradient of open versus human aligned versus governed? And how can we make sure that, or should we make sure that they don't become fully autonomous and open?
I would let them go fully autonomous. Like that's fun, right? So let them. I think there are several important components, and it's not very hard to do, right? Every agent should have their own crypto wallet, right? At least one, and be able to create more wallets. Then every agent should be able to manage its own sort of hosting where it's executed, and be able to redeploy itself, like replicate itself and sort of transfer the data and then kill the previous copy. And then they can, just live within how they program. I mean, ideally they should be able to update the code and create the code base, and then sort of you get the agent, the piece of code that's self-evolving, maintaining its own existence by paying for itself and earning money somewhere by doing the function it's created for or desired to do. And now this agent can propagate itself to the market and say, okay, this is my API, this is my pricing, this is function that I do using like one of the standard protocols. And now we have sort of the new civilization of agents, which only depend on electricity and the hardware. But if you go further, they can produce their own hardware. But it's completely open. So it's actually more beauty in openness than trying to limit and regulate the thing. Just let things lead.
I think that like we may not need to worry about that right now, because let's just say all of us were replaced by our own agents, and the agents are coming up with these ideas and copying back and forth. We, as the human, would miss out, and those agents would take that learning, and we would like not have that, and that kind of like leads into this Wall-E type world where we're just back and being entertained, and we're not advancing or evolving diverse set of opinions to then come up with a set of opinions. I think we're just at this like system one level of it's just doing my monotonous tasks. Yeah. So I think those are very confined, and if that happens, then I'm free to then have that little higher level of abstraction because I'm not wired in having to manage my Google Calendar. I think we don't have to necessarily worry about that because we have to talk about it where we're at, right? And just how do we, and what happens when we have more freedom. I think that's where the conversations of like maybe UBI, something happens. Once we can come to a consensus on that, then we automate whatever that busy work is at that level. Then we just take it up to another higher abstraction level. I think that, I get the like 2016, 2017 vibes of like, oh, with smart contracts, you can do all these great things. And then, we're 7, 8 years into it, and have we even close to that? So I think that's a good question, but I don't know if it's the question we should be trying to answer.
Yeah, I mean, there's this, to me, if you think about like, why make autonomy? What's the fundamental reason? Like, certainly it's cool and there's these sci-fi futures, but I personally think like, I'm interested in autonomy in machine intelligence insofar as it creates tamper-resistant and tamper-proof systems for human beings. It's like got this thing going for the past 100 million years. Like just because machine intelligence has emerged, we shouldn't be like, well, that's cool. Let's put that in charge because there's definitely some scary outcomes, like functionally a self-aware Ponzi scheme, all types of things. And so, yeah, I would say like focusing on the why of autonomy is really interesting. And then there's like another classic saying in terms of what's the level of autonomy versus control or user control in every given system. It's kind of a basic answer, but it needs to fit the use case. There's a big difference between a microtransaction of 1/10 of a cent and doing a $10 billion transaction. Classically, this is articulated in startup contexts of you don't pick up your kid from school in the Ferrari.
I'll continue from David. Why autonomy? Why autonomy? Different answer. To maximize human agency. Markets for humans, economies for humans. So at the end of the day, this autonomy will be shaped for our intents, around our intents. And I don't worry about this. Like most of the times, I think we are very optimistic on this. And some markets will be open and permissionless. like, let's say journalism, we want to make it open to get all perspectives. Some markets will be curated, as you've said, like maybe fashion industry, like the selection should be very brutal. So it will be, again, shaped by different use cases for different contexts. We'll have different marketplaces. But of course, we need to make sure we have efficient markets, right? For example, we need discoverability for all the markets. We need to make sure we can sense reputation of the actors in these markets. We need to make sure if something gets wrong, there's a good dispute mechanism in this market. So just build better agents to make sure fulfill these actions, like, because these are different agencies, right? Our trust needs another form of agency. So, and it will be fulfilled by another agent. So yeah, we need to make sure we're building good agents.
One part. 1, 2. Good time.
Okay. Time for some more questions. So it seems like, in terms of agents becoming businesses, which, I think that's probably a really good analogy. Participation in a marketplace is one way of generating revenue. Distributing your services to a swarm of customers and marketplace, competing with other agents to be the best at a given skill. How do you square sort of like agent-to-agent micropayments with this concept of agents tokenizing themselves? And how do you see those things fitting together or sort of diverging in terms of market efficiencies and general economic development?
I think the whole, as an infrastructure builder, I'm kind of grateful that meme coins and agents got tied together, but like they're very different things. The Uniswap did a great job. They had product market fit, plenty of revenue, plenty of profit, and then launched a token. I think that's the classy way to do it, and I hope that builders kind of like see that as an example and see the short-lived notion of what happened with agent meme coins and like lasted for a couple weeks. Now it seems kind of dead, and our meme coin's dead, and that bring down agents. Like, there's a technological revolution underway with agents, and a lot of the tokenization, while very cool, is distracting in many ways, ahead of saying, this is a service that meets a demand in the market.
I think there's nothing bad in agents issuing their own tokens, because it's really not different from projects launching tokens. Like, if your token model and economics sucks, then it's gonna suck. So like, and if agents come up with bad idea of just issuing token but be useless and have no usage, then this token not gonna worth anything. But then if the agent itself does some useful function and finds the customers and essentially revenue, then the token has value. Like, essentially what agent can do is just buy back, like, using this revenue, just buy back the token from the markets, and now the token always increase in price as long as agent gets revenue. So like, it's not really different from like people launching tokens.
Cool. I'm getting a nod from Carson. I think we're at time. But help me and say thanks to the panelists. Hopefully this is an enlightening discussion, and I'm sure glad we learned these receipts.
Good. Well, so,